Welcome to the very first episode of the Tiago Ferreira Podcast. I am honestly just so grateful and excited for this one. My main goal and vision for this first episode is to share with you a little bit more about my story and what this podcast is going to be about. So you can, from both ends, understand the journey that has taken me here and the journey that I would love to go on with you in this podcast moving forward. And you can just, with that information, make an educated decision for yourself if that feels like something that resonates with you, that you would like to join me for. Um, because one of the main intentions for this podcast, and I'll start there, is to be a contribution of really high quality personal development content on the internet. And there are so many amazing people already doing that. And I want this podcast to be yet another option in an abundant ocean of quality, deep, vulnerable, raw, authentic content on social media. And as I share more of my story with you, you'll start to understand why that's important to me and what I actually mean by that in the context of this podcast. Um, it's like to really understand me and the journey that has brought me here. I think a really beautiful place to start is understanding my biggest childhood dream, which is I wanted to be an astronaut. And, it was just a playful childhood thing. I remember playing in all sorts of ways and imagining what it would be like to launch on a rocket to space and to be in space and floating and all that stuff. But the reason why that meant so much to me is I was blessed to grow in a family that really supported my dreaming and that really encouraged me to dream. And especially one person that really comes to mind that's relevant to the story is my grandfather, who, as a kid, we would sit for hours and hours and hours on the couch next to each other and talk about books about space, and he would give me books about space and astrology and astronomy and rockets and all that stuff, and we would read that together and talk about it. And I felt that like for the first time in my life, um, there was someone pouring into my dream as much as me, someone with more experience, a little bit more knowledge. Like he read a lot, like he had a lot of knowledge about engineering and like just from reading books. And it was such a phenomenal experience for me. Like in a way, I feel like he was my first mentor. And then as the years go on, I had many other like people that I would consider mentors now, even though I didn't look at it like that back then, like from teachers and basketball coaches and scuba diving coaches, like that really uh, shifted my life forever and completely informed who I am as a person today. But the pivotal moment was me spending most of my teenage years and going into high school working to become an astronaut. And it's a really hard thing to do. So I have no delusion that I would have actually made it. Maybe I would, maybe I didn't. What I know for sure is that it's not my path. And how I figured that was when I was in high school, my grandfather passed on. And I remember just feeling this sense of like what am I supposed to focus on now? Like so much of my energy was poured into projects and like extracurricular activities and learning about space and the stars and being like an astronaut and all that stuff. And I was studying for it. And eventually I even went to study theoretical physics in college for a couple of months, and then I dropped out. And the reason I dropped out was my grandpa passing on really triggered a whole situation of me questioning not what I wanted. What I wanted was clear. Where I wanted to go was clear. But I had never stopped to question or explore who I was. And how funny is that? Like to me, it's hilarious. Like it's a huge cosmic joke of like spending an entire like first portion of my life wanting to explore out there, the stars, the world, like, but never actually going on that same journey within. So it's like it wouldn't matter, and we hear these stories all the freaking time. It wouldn't matter what I discovered or figured out or learned or explored, because the bigger question is, where would it be coming from? And for me, it would have just been coming from a place of disconnection from myself, because I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I wanted, what I valued deeply, just because I never felt like I poured energy into discovering that. And so I remember dropping out of college and feeling so freaking lost. Like, where do I even begin? There's no textbook. My entire life has been, oh, I'm going to go study theoretical physics or possibly engineering and like do something like that gets me closer to my dream. And then I start realizing that I actually don't, it's not who I am to do those things. It's something I like, but the more I get immersed in the actual day to day of what it looks like to be in that world, I'm just like, oh yeah, this is not me. And I remember just being on YouTube randomly and getting a video suggestion. And it's a promotional video for this personal development event. Like, it's hosted by the biggest name in the industry. This man, like, at the time and now still, like, even bigger, there's events all over the world. And apparently he was going to do an event in London. I'm Portuguese, I'm from Portugal. So London's really close, way closer than other places where he does events. And I was like, I looked at that, and it was all about how you can become the best version of yourself and live a life that really is authentic to you, and how the path to get there is to do inner work, is to grow yourself, because as you grow, everything in your life transforms. And I remember watching that video. Never in my life had I come across anything like that. No one in my family knew anything about personal development. It was just not a thing for us. Like, it was my first exposure to it. And I remember getting this visceral feeling of, whoa, like, I know nothing about this, but this is me. Like, I remember feeling that, like having a deep knowing that this is me, like this is my path. Like I honestly, I had no more information about it other than that, but I just remember feeling that so viscerally. And so I go to sign up for his event, and it was really expensive at the time. Like, it was way more money than I had, like as an 18-year-old. But I was like, man, like, I spent my entire life chasing a dream that, the more I reflect on it, doesn't feel like who I am. It's not that I'm less excited about space. It's just not who I am to be an astronaut. And in 2 minutes of watching this video, I feel more connected to who I truly am at my core than I've ever felt. So I gotta go. And it felt like being on the edge of a cliff. And behind me is everything I've ever known, everything that's familiar, everything that I can hold on to and have certainty about. And forward, it was just nothing and everything at the same time, but more like it felt uncertain. Like, I'm at the edge of a cliff. My toes are dangling off the edge of a cliff. There's nothing to hold on to moving forward. And it felt like life looked me in the eye and asked me, what are you going to do? Like, what's your choice? Are you going to turn around, go back to what's familiar and what you've always known, and live there for the rest of your life, which is what so many people do nowadays? Or are you going to look uncertainty right in the eye and be like, let's go? And so that was my very first leap of faith and my introduction to this whole concept that I want to share with you, which was, to me, it feels like a leap of faith to just be on that edge of everything that you know, and you leap forward into nothingness, into everythingness, into possibility, into something that you never even imagined existed. And so what I did was, I was clear I needed to be there. So I booked the flights to London. I booked the crappiest hotel, which was what I could afford, this weird hostel 3 hours away from the venue. Literally, the person sleeping next to me in a 30-bed dorm room was a homeless person who was just like spending the night. And every day I would commute 3 hours to get to the venue so I could see people going in and see people going out. And honestly, it changed my life. Like, I can't, like, to this day is one of the most energizing things about being at personal development events to me. I cannot possibly describe to you the feeling of watching people go in and watching the expression on their face, their energy, their beingness change as they came out at the end of the day. It's like, to me, it was like the essence of what it means to be human oozing out of people. And I remember being like, what is happening in that room? Because again, I couldn't afford to participate at the event, so I just hung out. And I wanted to find someone to guide me in this world. Like, I wanted to find a mentor, because I was like, I felt so pulled towards it that I was like, man, like, I gotta figure out a way to learn what's happening. Like, what are these people doing to have this energy at the end of the day, to feel so alive and connected and passionate about life. And I set out to like speak with everyone I could and talk about like, how can I find a mentor? How can I have someone guide me in this journey? And I get to the last day of the event and couldn't find anyone. Like, nothing. And I remember being on the bus ride back to the airport, and on the plane back to Portugal, and just feeling like I had failed. Like, somehow I felt like a little bit almost angry at life, at the universe, because I had done what I felt was the right thing to do. Which was to follow my intuition, to follow what I knew to be true, which is like, I'm going to make this decision that makes no sense. And I kind of had an expectation that it should have worked out. And so I was really frustrated, because I spoke with so many people, and in the first place went to London, which was like such a crazy decision, but didn't find a mentor. Like, I came back home empty-handed, like nothing, absolutely nothing. Plus, I spent all my money. And I remember that being such a formative period, because to me, that's where the journey really began. Because like, taking a leap of faith is one thing, but then it's about learning how to operate and move in that unknown. Because now I couldn't go back to what was familiar anymore. It wasn't an option that was available. So, because how can I unsee and unexperience what I had just experienced that changed my life, and I wasn't even in the room? Like, just to witness people coming in and out had changed my life. I can't unsee that. And so it was about almost like navigating in the middle of a jungle, and like kind of like doing my best to find, okay, so this wasn't my path, so let's find what it is. And I discovered that there was another event 6 months later in Dallas, Texas. And with the amazing support of my family, plus being able to save up a little bit more money, I ended up being able to go to that event. this time as a participant. So I was in the room, finally experiencing the transformation, experiencing the magic and the beautiful raw experience of personal growth in a room with other people, talking about and experiencing things of how can we become better versions of ourselves, how can we live a life that is more aligned, how can we have more passion and joy in our life, how can we navigate the hard times, like all of these conversations that, my God, do I hope one day are a part of our education system. And on day 3 of the event, whatever it was, someone turns to me and says, Tiago, like, you're from Portugal, right? And I'm like, yeah. Did you know there's a Portuguese coach, a Portuguese person working at the event? And I was like, what do you mean? Like, I got to know them. And they're like, yeah, you got to meet him. And I'm like, I'm going to meet him. And so I was like navigating, like looking for this person. And eventually I find him. And it was just such an instant click. Like we resonated with each other immediately. He's just such an amazing, incredible man. And we clicked, talked for a bit, booked a dinner for a couple of months later. And a few months later, I'm back in Portugal having dinner with him. And he became my first mentor. At that dinner, we talked about what it would look like for us to work together. And then for the next 2 years, he offered me to do his coaching certification. He was a coach and certified people to become coaches. So I became a coach, starting working at his events and supporting him in his mission. And he became my first mentor. We traveled, we did events in different places. And it was such a magical experience because I had to go to London to come back to Portugal, to go to Dallas, to meet another Portuguese guy who lived less than an hour away from me back home, less than 30 minutes away from me, actually, that I would have never met had I not gone on this journey. And that was the first time that my system, my body, my nervous system, my beingness had experienced the full cycle of taking a leap of faith, where uncertainty and navigating the hard times and the difficulty of not knowing what to do and being on the in the pure unknown eventually lands you at a magical place that you didn't even know existed before. But it's the next step on your journey. And long story short, that's what I've been doing for the last 9 years. All over, traveling, finding different mentors, working with them, learning with them, and supporting them in their mission as I learn what my mission looks like. And what my mission is to be a bridge between these mentors and these incredible events and these incredible places where you can transform your life and you, which most of my audience is probably going to be young people in their 20s or 30s that want to expand and grow and evolve. But this is for you. This is for anyone who's watching this. I want to be the bridge for you to have access to world-class personal development. And I want this podcast to be the synchronistic, serendipitous thing on your feed, just like that YouTube video was for me, that hopefully opens up a new door for you, opens up a new possibility. And of course, like for mentors, I want to be a bridge for them to reach a younger audience and to reach more people and for their mission to expand, because we're at a place in the world where I feel like it has never been more needed for us to be raw and authentic with each other, and to be able to look a human being in the eye and see their essence, and to learn what it's like for us to live an authentic life and to grow into that ourselves, and to really not settle for anything less than the life we were born to live. And my hope and my mission for this podcast is that it becomes a place of inspiration for you to take your leaps of faith in your life, as I will continue to. And we get to go on that journey together in community. And honestly, I couldn't be more excited for it. and to see the magic that you create in your life as you take your own leaps of faith. And I'm excited to share more of my story with you because, my God, the yeah, magical things happen when you really step into that unknown. So if that's a journey you want to go on, every single episode of this podcast is going to be a leap of faith into new possibilities, new conversations, new concepts, new understandings of what it means to be human and to thrive in all areas of life: relationships, lifestyle, work, finances, health, and how to navigate the tough times. What do you do when life has this whole spectrum of emotions and feelings and experiences and it's not all good all the time? How do we navigate that? How do we create magic and alignment and authenticity across a full spectrum of life? That's what we're going to be diving into from all sorts of different perspectives. And my goal is to bring the best of who I've met and to share that with you. And I can't wait to see what you do with it and the possibilities that it opens up in your life. So without further ado, welcome to the Tiago Ferreira Podcast. And I'm excited for us to go on this journey together.